Thank you. So thanks for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here and join the meeting. I wanted to perhaps say a few words about the interaction between the structural reforms carried out at the national level and at the EU level, because the EU level also carries out structural reforms, sometimes without even having a notion of it. The principles of European policy assignment is subsidiarity. So the role of the EU is first to set the conditions for competition internally and also externally, to sign trade agreements with foreign countries. Secondly, it is to instruct the member states on structural reforms. And so I agree that the European semester doesn't work well. I will come back to that. And the MIP, the macroeconomic imbalance procedure, is even worse. And finally, to help poor regions to catch up. These are the regional funds and the regional policies. Now, the role of the member states is first to implement the reforms, transposing the directives, and implement the country-specific recommendations. And it is also to take care of the losers of economic integration, whether internal or external. So it is at the member state level that the unemployment insurance is carried out, the minimum income, social safety nets, and also territorial policies. It is the task of the member states, if they see some losers of the integration, to turn them into winners through education, through investment, infrastructure, and so on, mobility. Now, I think this assignment between the EU and the member states needs to be reconsidered for two reasons. The first one is that, so you also already talked about it, the European semester is weak. The macro imbalance procedure is too broad and overlapping with other procedures. Initially, it was a very good idea. It's intended to avoid a new financial crisis, with surveillance of current account imbalances, credit growth, housing bubbles, and so on. So it was to avoid a Spanish type or Irish type crisis. But then it's like a train was leaving from Brussels, and the technocrats added new carriages to this train, and it became very confusing. Today, it's an overlap. It overlaps largely with the Stability and Growth Pact. When you look at the MIP, you find the same recommendations concerning the fiscal balance. It overlaps also with Europe 2020 objectives, or also with macroprudential policies, with everything. You can even find gender balance into the MIP recommendations. I'm a fan of gender balance, but I don't think there is a close relationship with the risk of a financial crisis. So I would be surprised. So I think we need to separate the three issues. For fiscal discipline is one objective. We have an instrument which we can talk about, which is the Stability and Growth Pact. It may be reformed, but this is the scheme. We have a second objective, which is short and medium-term stability, financial stability. So this is the task of the MIP. It's also the task of macroprudential policy. Strangely, macroprudential policy is completely separated from the MIP, whereas MIP is intertwined with Europe 2020. So it's very strange because the short and medium-term imbalances can come from various types of policies, but credit growth is one of them. I think this second block concerns mainly the euro area. So if there are imbalances in the UK, say, well, no, in Poland, I would say now, there may be a financial crisis, but the systemic consequences are clearly not the same compared to the euro area. And then you have a third block, which is long-term growth and employment, and this is an EU question, and it should be an EU scheme with perhaps longer windows than just year to year, because you can obviously not change entirely and reshuffle your judiciary system in just 1 year. So the first reason why the assignment needs to be reconsidered is first that the European semester is weak, and this is the task of the EU level to make the reforms, to make it work. Then the second reason is that, in my view, subsidiarity principle has some unintended effects. First, national governments are squeezed between, on the one hand, EU decisions on the single market on trade, and also their country-by-country recommendations, and the impact on local labor markets. There are very large, lasting inequalities across employment areas in each country. For instance, in France, across the 300 employment areas, unemployment rate goes from 5% to 18%. And this is completely persistent. And the correlation with extreme votes is close to unity. So I think we need to reconsider the concept of spillovers. We always, as economists, think of spillovers in terms of economics. So for instance, we would tend to think that an infrastructure needs to be financed at the EU level when it is cross-border, whereas when it is local, it's the task of the local government. This is how it works generally. But here we have social and political spillovers. So if these persistent inequalities within countries are not taken care of, then this may backlash on other countries too. So there are some instruments. There is one instrument at EU level, but it is very inefficient. It is the Globalization Adjustment Fund. Can we recall that it has a budget of 150 million for the whole EU. Each application is it's intended for when a company, when there is a layoff of at least 500 people by a company, including the companies that work for the big company. But it doesn't work. Each application needs to be approved by the Council, by the European Parliament, and co-financed at national level. Over 9 years, 0.05% of the labor force has been covered. So it's less than 7,000 people in 2016. So it's almost nothing. It's negligible. I think this tool needs to be completely either scratched or reshuffled. Today, the main cause of losing jobs may not be globalization, but more technical change. It doesn't make a difference for an individual whether you lose your job because of globalization or because of the internet. So I think one way to make the EU sustainable for the people, because this is what I will stop on that, would be to move towards what I would call a jobs union. After the capital market union, why only capital and banks? We need to think about the workers. And a jobs union could have 3 pillars. And I think this kind of convergence process could be more efficient than country-specific recommendations that are like the teacher tells the pupil what to do. It's not a common project. Jobs union would be a common project with first pillar convergence, which doesn't mean harmonization of national labor markets. So it's all about eliminating or limiting the duality of the labor markets, limitations in terms of, or guidelines in terms of layoff legislations or worker protection, minimum unemployment insurance, things like that, and institutional quality, job agencies, professional training, education. Second pillar would be the European job market to eliminate all the distortions to labor mobility. There are many distortions to labor mobility today, pensions, but also unemployment insurance that is not portable, and also continuous education entitlements, which are not portable. Information technology to reduce fraud that is related to mobility. Also, investment in human capital for occupation. I'm very I was marked by the fact that the Juncker plan is only about physical capital. It's not about human capital, but human capital may have a return that is higher in some cases than physical capital. There are some occupations that face recruitment difficulties all over the EU, like nurses or data scientists. So there's a need for investment in these skills. And also an effective recognition of diplomas. We know that there is de jure recognition of the diplomas across the EU, but it's not effective in many cases. So you could think of, for instance, of labeling or European labeling of diplomas. And the third pillar would be the solidarity with the losers, which would itself have, so you have two kinds of losers. You have structural losers related to globalization or technical change. So you could think of moving the globalization fund into a fund that would accompany locally at the level of the employment area in relation with the local authorities. So it's not the national authorities, the local authorities, with say 5 years windows with some projects. And it may fail, but at least you try. And you have temporarily losers. And this is where the European Unemployment Insurance Fund could come. I don't think a union of the unemployed will ever fly, but a union of the workers could. And attached to that, you need some protection against the random shocks. And but it's a part of a package. It's not the start of it. It's a complement. So to conclude, I think we need a two-layer reform to continue at the national level, but it's quite well defined what needs to be done at national level. But at the EU level, we need really to reconsider the policies, the European semester, and to launch maybe a common project in replacement of country-by-country approach. Thank you.